Hello.
Uh-huh.
Hello, Sevan.
Yes.
Hi, this is Hassan, and I had a question about the way of the shaman and your perspective on it, and also the ancestral groove you talked about earlier, and how it kind of drives you in a certain way.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, the way of the shaman, I'm not sure if you're talking about the literary text itself or the actual path itself.
The
Um,
actual, yeah,
the actual path. Well,
yeah.
I could only refer you to someone who would be more in a position completely to explain it to you, although I can give you some pointers, but that would be my good friend Luis Diaz, who's actually had the opportunity to even, well, he's from Colombia, but he went back to Colombia for a while and sat with some of the mamis and taitas and really absorbed what the ancient tradition was about with shamanism, where shamanism is today, because obviously, just like everything else, shamanism is suffering from many different individuals, self-proclaimed shamans, just with the ayahuasca and not understanding the tradition and understanding what the whole goals and things were. Personally, like I seen more than anything, ayahuasca metamorphosized lives. But that's a very, very unique process. So it does have to be done by the proper individual. I've also heard of the other side of things where a person gets into the ayahuasca too much or gets into, just like anything else, if you're not dealing with the astral hygiene, meaning that making sure that the individuals around you when your chakras that are open and the personal state of your consciousness, even on also your physical cleansing, etc., is tightened down before you open up. That becomes very important. So these are all very adept paths. Obviously, when you're talking about a shaman, you're talking about the depth of the depth. So the level of how you have to begin to experience things doesn't really come from so much of a teacher, more so than it comes from experience. It takes a person who is willing to go and make that connection, not just because they read about it or heard about it in a book or something, but they feel uniquely a connection to it and it's something for them. And so then they generally are caught up, as I say, or whisked away into some area where they can begin to get more in tune with that. And so I personally believe that it is a bona fide path of healing. I've seen individuals with real situations and real issues go in there and get clearance. It has the ability to metamorphosize anyone that participates in it because it breaks down the ego. It actually shows the individual, along with more than anything, allowing them to feel their presence in their current state. Personally, I'm looking forward to the times of where the ceremonies themselves are. There's always healing going on. Don't get me wrong. There's always going to be healing in the tradition, but where the ceremonies have a projection that extends into directives such as figuring out what's going on with the planet, etc. And I believe that this is the new stage of shamanism in a sense with what I call the neo-shaman, is looking directly into certain situations while they're in that stage of consciousness with groups of individuals. I think it offers that level of potential, actually a great level of that potential. So what I'm saying, just to be very clear, is that many of the ceremonies that are being conducted, probably 80%, are based on just healing, meaning that generally the individuals that are coming in are dealing with something in their physical, spiritual, or mental lives, and they're looking to get some clearance, and then they go in there and they get that clearance. And that's generally the intentions that are made. And as I said, there's always cleansing going on. And in certain cases, many of the individuals that have been participating in the ceremonies are ready to move into the next stage of what the ayahuasca is capable of doing and what it's all about. And so I'm looking forward to the times of when the projections become very strong and they start to become directed towards some of the things that are taking place in the reality, as far as looking into them and stopping them. It's the same way that the people would utilize this power of prayer and these kind of things in order to change things. I see that as a very integral benefit to what's happening with the ayahuasca ceremonies.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Wholeness.
Okay, so that was a rather short call, so I'm going to go ahead and take another call if anyone has one. And in between then, I'm going to go ahead and take a look here. Okay, someone says they have a question. Actually, that someone is Oman. And they say, hi, I have a question. Sometimes when I travel far places, I start feeling uneasy. Is there a way of getting rid of this feeling, as it's stopping me from traveling the world? The furthest I've traveled is 7 hours. Please help. Okay. Well, Oman, what's mainly necessary is that has a lot to do with your foundation, and your root chakra, because that's what actually gives you the foundation. That's what makes you feel comfortable when you're in other places, is that root chakra. It's basically how planted are you where you are to allow you to feel the connectivity, right? And so the first thing that I would ask you is that what is your workout looking like? Like, are you actually working out your legs and the state of your legs? Because if someone can kick, let's say for instance, kick your legs, and will you move over, or meaning will you fall, or will you actually be able to stand up and hold your stance, right? So that's the first thing, is to getting with your ground. Also, make sure you tune into the next show, because that's going to be all about how to perfect your stance. Caller from the area code 608, you're on Astro Quest Wholeness.
Hi.
Hey.
Are they still taking phone questions?
Mm-hmm.
Or she answered?
You're on now.
Body cleanse. The total body cleanse.
Uh-huh.
And I did a life science screen and found some issues with my liver. I found some cholesterol. There were some things with my lungs. And I'm not going to take this to a doctor, my chiropractor. I told her I'm doing this body cleanse with the dynamics. So I think I'm in the right step to do the cleanse and then stop taking any other supplements, just stay with it, realm or any other. So I had some questions about maybe what I'll be experiencing, or what you might say for a first-time user.
Of the cleansing kit, ma'am? Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes.
Okay, and is that are you saying that you had already tried the cleanse, or you're thinking about trying?
Coming Monday.
Okay, awesome. Is that an internal cleanse complete, or is that a colon cleanse?
The whole thing.
Okay.
Whole enchilada.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, I can let you know exactly what to expect. Obviously, this cleanse is a lot more gentler, and this fast, there's a fasting that does take place, but it's a lot more gentler than some of the cleanses and things that I've experienced in the past, and I really like that, because obviously, if you go on, as the lady had discussed earlier today, if you go on something and that's too aggressive for the body, that you can do some damage to the body. But in this case, what Blessed Herbs has put together is they put together the perfect type of package for you to clean the body out completely, right? And so what you're dealing with first is you have 3 days of initial where you're backing down, and I love this, that backing down off your food supply. So it's not that the first day that you start it, you have to stop eating right away, because that becomes very difficult and you start getting hungry a lot easier. So what happens is that first it's 3 days of just backing down the intake. And then what I would suggest personally, and this is a big thing, is that you decide to use the best option, which is actually not eating anything. And the reason why is because you won't actually be as hungry, because you have the psyllium hull packs, which are basically what you are drinking in conjunction with apple juice to cling to the walls of the colon and pull off what's called the mucoid plaque. And the reason why this is so important not to eat, especially during this process, is because if you happen to eat something or anything that has a fibrous nature, you can also drink strained juices, and there'll be a chart there to let you know what juices not to drink, but which ones you can. But making sure everything is strained and has no pulp, what happens is that it allows all the psyllium hulls to cling to the walls of the intestines, versus again, if you're eating something, it's going to cling to the food. And the reason why this is important is by the 7th or 8th day, it should have built up along the complete line of all of the walls. And obviously it's like a tube, a snake tube. And so when that occurs, when one part shifts, it generally has the ability to drag all of the rest of the parts that it's stuck to off. And so you'll see this is different than all the rest of the movements that you've had in the first 1 to 6 days. And this movement will be rather dark, and you can tell that it's been removed from the intestinal walls. So it's happening lightly within the first 1 to 6 days, and then there's generally one main movement where you can feel the change in the frequency. And then after that, you got about 2 days left. There's 9 days total. And then you go into the second part of the cleanse, which is the part of the complete cleanse where you're cleansing the blood, cleansing the liver, etc. And during this process, you can actually begin eating. However, what you'll notice is as you come off the cleanse, it's like coming out of the car wash. You want to keep the car clean. So you don't generally rush back into eating if you were already, but most people aren't. But if you were eating something that or most people on the line aren't, but if you were eating something that was already tearing up your system, generally, especially once you remove something and you feel that clearance, you're like, I'm definitely not going to go mess up my system again. And so obviously you get a chance to really enjoy your body. So that's really what to expect is that complete lightening up, obviously with frequency. And we talk about this a lot, but when you raise the frequency of your body, this allows you to be able to get into the situations that you so far haven't had the energy to get into. And so so it's an awesome thing, and I definitely congratulate you for taking that cleanse. And a lot of people have been getting on the cleanse a lot more, and then it's not one of those things where a person says, well, I didn't feel anything, because it's obviously you're doing a decent amount of work, and what we've done is we've just made sure that everything is there in a timely manner, all your manuals and things like that are necessary for you to do the cleanse properly.
Got you.
Yeah.
So I guess part of me is, so I did this. Do you know what a lifeline screen is? It's something where they go through and check everything. So I saw all these, things come up, like the liver is stressed and, the lungs are stressed. And I'm just so excited because I'm not even worrying about this.
Right.
For the most part.
Right. I mean, especially, it's not like you're not dealing with something that's not going to go over all of that. And that's the good thing. It's almost like doing maintenance to the car. And I would advise people to also understand, well, first of all, the word car means flesh, as in carnivore. And so it's what we use to get around. So our bodies are actually the real cars. And so the maintenance that has to be done to the filtration system, which is basically the pancreas, the liver, etc., needs to be at least every 5,000 miles, or wherever, however in your body that your body turns its cycle. For some people, it's 3 months, 6 months, a year, etc. But you need to, most people say you should follow the seasons, that the world is in a tense setup to our seasonal cleanse cycle. So you should cleanse the liver during certain times and cleanse the lungs during certain times. And this becomes a seasonal thing because that area is more easy to clean during those times. And that's also based on temperature outside and things like that. So, as you get more into your body and also positioning yourself, like where you're actually stationed, your house and its geographic positions, those kind of things. And remember, this is like where you're just doing more research on yourself. So for those that feel like this may be guiding them somewhat off the path, it's not, the path is you. So the more you can learn about you and the significance of where you are, then the more you can collect all of things that you've been separated from.
Beautiful. So then after I do this and I can learn about the future ones, like next year, just look into what comes next. And
for sure. Well, there's a lot of information on the internet about when to actually cleanse certain organs and how that works on a seasonal level. Generally, that's specific to your climate. So yeah, once the cleanse is over, you'll actually have an opportunity. Well, you can even do it during the cleanse. It makes it better than looking at food on TV or something. But no, there is one part of the cleanse though where looking at food becomes satisfying. I think it's around the 4th day. It's like, I don't need to eat it. I just need to look at it. But no, what happens is that at least after the cleanse also, then because the body is more subtle, then you get a chance to look at utilizing more subtle things to be effective to the body. And we're not just talking about buying monatomics or something like that. We're talking about crystals. We're talking about all those kind of things that may, if you've experienced in the past that you haven't had as vivid encounter with, meaning that you can't feel anything, the energy potential is there. So what we also want to do with our whole Advent here into spirituality is we want to show people, well, what is vivid? Like what should be happening? Because for instance, if you take a magnet and you take this magnet and you put it in between your 2 fingers, put it in between these 2 fingers, or put it into here, and if you don't feel anything, that means that the body is not conductive enough. The fluids have to be changed. So it's just like a diagnostic that you do on the body, and you can test out the energy centers to how subtle the body really is capable of feeling by utilizing first N52 little small magnets, getting into bioenergetics where it shows you how to put magnets on different parts of your body. And so those kind of things become more of the exploratory work that you get a chance to do after the cleanse, because you also know the body's in the best stage that it's been in who knows how long, probably since you were younger, depending upon how many cleanses you participated in. But it's in the best stage that it's ever been to get involved, especially in things that have been somewhat puzzling and difficult to deal with, even from an emotional level, because you'll notice that a lot of that energy, all the emotional energy, and we'll get into this more. And you heard it kind of in the intro to the show if you heard it, but it says watch your emotions and learn to control your emotions, because your emotions have everything to do with the root chakra, especially when it comes to getting angry and getting fired up, as they call it, or running hot, as other people call it. They use the correct terms, because when the toxins begin to build up in that colon area, and then there's no movement, then there's no vibration, so the furnace is not as hot. And this actually doesn't allow the person to burn off toxins. It also allows the person obviously to begin to gain weight, since their digestive system's not functioning properly. So all these kind of things, now look at what we're about to do. The next show, we're going to isolate all of those things step by step of how to do it mentally, spiritually, and physically. That way, whatever part of the person that they're more partial to, then they'll receive it like that. Because what happens is, if we just talk about it on the physical level or on the spiritual level or on the mental level, we're going to miss the person that is primarily or sometimes diametrically opposed to whatever kind of stance that you're explaining it at. And that's why we use this triangulation. It's a real thing. It's not the Illuminati. It's about when it's time to find someone, you can't find them with 2 coordinates. You have to use 3. And so that mind, body, and soul is our 3 coordinates to locating whatever's going on in the easiest way to get it fixed for the maximum results.
Got you. Well, Here was my plan, because I think I have a jump start, because I took some of the gold, the Kaleido gold, because I wanted my brain to be good, because I'm starting to be a insurance agent. And then I took some pink, and I took some red. So I really saw the emotions settle down, and my friends shared Chulin and black. So I've had a little of that. I'm sure it didn't absorb like it's going to in the future.
Right. Well,
after I do my cleanse.
Well, yeah, you definitely got it. Well, something like Chulin, and that's what I was saying before, is generally Ayurveda is even the next step to internal cleansing. But even before internal cleansing, stuff like Gene Builder, Chulin, Shilajit, you're going to feel, especially from an energetic level, and but you'll feel it more, and then also you'll be able to make the change the dosages. The dosages will be a lot lower before you feel like, okay, I've had enough of this particular substance. So. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot that you can keep doing with yourself, but the goal is, again, is the main thing is the cleanse, and that's why sometimes it's to us the first place to begin. And there's 2 price ranges. Obviously, not everyone has the ability to get into internal cleansing, because it's quite pricey. I think the kit is like $275, but the colon cleanse also is about $75 or something like that for those that are listening. So to understand that the larger organ is the colon, and that's the one that has most of the fecal matter and all the different toxins and all these kind of things in it. And so even because if you talk to someone, they may say, oh, I don't know. Obviously they're arguing with it, whether they're going to spend money on themselves, but they can go and spend it on a pair of shoes or something. But the reality is you may get people that say, well, I'm not prepared financially to put $318 into myself, which is, I guess, what the kit is after taxes. But a simple $100, what is that, $75, can actually make drastic changes. And even if the person is actually experiencing some kind of financial situation, because we've figured out that current or currency attached to the energy in your body, it's almost like making an investment to see a return. Because if you think so?
I think I will.
I think so personally.
I'll be more. I know everything's going to run smoother for my work when I do this.
Yeah.
Just two questions.
Mm-hmm.
So what I had thought I would do, because I had just invested some money into some Young Living. They had some minerals. You know. I can't even think. I'm so excited talking about it.
Me too.
Trace minerals with their essential oil, and I had something called sulfozyme, and I was thinking of using that up to, because I sunk some money into that.
Oh yeah, I mean, if are you meaning Or is your question, should you continue to use the other products?
No, stop. I mean, I haven't started it, but I thought I would
Okay.
use that up, and then I definitely am going to be moving into, after the cleanse, I'm going to move definitely in 100% to Realm Dynamics products when I finish my cleanse. But I'm looking at this product I have here with the Young Living, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got these couple bottles of trace minerals and, some of what they call sulfazyme. I think it's got some MSM and, things that aren't going to hurt me, I don't think. I don't know, I guess I can figure that out.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, whatever substances, I think, Young Living is not that horrible a company. They're a little bit pricey sometimes, but they tend to do decent research on their products. So all that stuff you can incorporate into your regimen.
Right later,
Especially when it comes to trace minerals. Trace minerals can be added to the water, like actually should be added to the water that you drink. I'm not sure if they're in capsule form or if they're in liquid.
Yeah, I have to
take
them apart and drink them.
Yeah.
I'm only, what was your first name?
James.
James.
Mm-hmm.
So I am, I think I just want to take it because I put the money into it. I think it's, it is pricey. It's a good company, but I've discovered this, and that's going to be my new path.
Awesome. But yeah, I wouldn't discard it, especially if you've taken it before and it gives you, what you need. Obviously, all we do is we just make sure that everything that we're getting is of the highest quality and that it's going to do what it says it's going to do as far as the substance itself, and then the rest is just left up to the aspirant from there. And so, yeah, if you have certain things that you've already purchased and they're coming from companies that you've already investigated, we definitely don't say throw it out.
I'm not going to buy it anymore. No, it's going to be done once this is gone. It's going to be what I've discovered now. So then here's one more question. My daughter is just finishing up. She had breast cancer. She's doing radiation. She's struggling with the tamoxifen. Being in her shoes, I do exactly what they say, but she wants to do a cleanse. But I'm guessing she should possibly wait till she gets done with all of that.
And where did you say she's going, ma'am?
She had breast cancer, so they've done some margins and lumpectomy, and then she's just finishing up the radiation. So she's been using, we got her blue tansy, because that's from Young Living, and it helps pull radiation, supposedly, whatever. We're just doing what we can for her. So that's going to be done. Now she's staring down this thing they want her to take. It's called tamoxifen. Tamoxifen or something like that. It's so she's got some big decisions. However, I feel like she wants to do this cleanse stuff. We're trying to zero down when we think she should start that, but they could want her to take this tamoxifen for 5 years.
Well, yeah, actually, we just had a conversation about something very similar to this very recently, and it's a very serious subject because it's about after the doctors and after the modern medical practice has treated something, what steps should be taken from a holistic level. What steps are still safe to take? And this is something that came up because we were examining one particular situation where an individual had cancer in the family. The family was half and half. Many of them wanted to treat it naturally, but the majority wanted to take it to the hospital and to go through some type of therapy, and obviously the time was running out. So they chose, instead of doing it through the holistic way, to go through the doctor. And then, of course, they put them on the chemo and they did some surgery. And it still didn't improve things. And so the person went into then trying it the natural way and had some more of adverse reactions. And so this was a big concern because obviously the people who were somewhat of the naturopaths said, well, yeah, it's because we're treating now over the top of burns because of the radiation, the burning, and the cutting, which is definitely not the way that you want to really deal with the body when it comes to certain kind of ailments. So what happens is that you have to use common sense, because realistically something is aggressive at times. If you've done any kind of thing to your digestive system, let's say, and let's say they've gotten some kind of colon surgery, and then they go and take a colon cleansing kit because they're like, well, I should have did this before, but I'm gonna do it now. And then, stimulate their bowels to a point where they even start to have some bleeding issues. So the reality is that it's a very serious thing when we're talking about how to treat something that has occurred. So every situation has to be dealt with and isolated specifically, and that's why we've got this whole specialist thing going on now. Is because a lot of people are coming with not just default situations, but situations that are specific to what's going on with something direct. And so we want to make sure that we're dealing with it directly. We want to make sure if we're going to suggest anything, because obviously we're not doctors. But if we're going to suggest anything, we want to make sure we do all of our research and we want to know everything about what's going on. And then that way, if we make any suggestions, then it's okay. So, but the general rule of thumb here is to not use anything that is very aggressive. Like if you're going to treat the situation after the fact, then you need to work with the more subtle, the etheriums. Even things like the Ayurveda, except for SIMD and Agar 35, which are, lung, they help with situation with the lungs and the brain, but nothing like Jing Builder, Chulin, and these kind of things that basically cause energetic spikes or energetic upheavals in a tense, meaning that the energy center is agitated because it picks up very rapidly. And so these are the kind of things that we want to make sure that you do some research. There's also on Realm Dynamics, there is a help button. We're trying to get that line manned as much as possible. We have 2 people that'll be joining in next week, and so we'll be able to handle a lot more call volume. But it's always something to just run by us really briefly before you make some aggressive decisions.
But you said not to send in the Agar 35 or the children, right?
Well, I said the Agar 35 and the SIMD is very gentle, so that will work for the system. But I wouldn't advise things like Shilajit and Chulin because they're energy builders. And so in a certain tense, and I know you may be thinking, well, that's what she needs is energy though. But in every tense that the energy may be too strong, you should always, and that's what it is with Ayurveda that's so beneficial, is that you can start off with smaller dosages. Maybe like a half of a peppercorn worth, because it does help to have the right level of fluid consistency. But what I'm saying with everything, you have to do it gently. You can't go into we're going to fix this today and then just dump out the whole bottle, etc.
Right. That was my sense.
Yeah.
The one sense I did have with her though was maybe a colon cleanse. I don't know, and that's what she wanted to do. I mean, she wanted to do the colon cleanse, but
yeah, and only, again, I'm not completely abreast of the medical situation, but what the colon cleanse does it contain is stimulants for the bowels, because obviously the goal is to get you moving the bowels at least 3 times, 2 to 3 times. And so depending upon her actual physical condition, like how her energetic system is now, like how strong she is, this would determine everything, because it would also determine how much food intake she's going to need while she's going through the cleanse. So, but it sounds like you know what you're doing, but you're just asking me for confirmations in a certain tense. But just know that it's basically what you thought, to go in subtly. Obviously, anything that would treat that area, be very careful of, like in the area and specific to what has gone on. And then if you can see her in any situation where she needs to remove toxins, those kind of things, and you feel like that it's the root chakra that is more toxic, then this is what you would treat with. If you feel like that she's gone into another stage and you need to delve into it on another level, you have the periodic table. So you can go into something that nobody has actually realized yet, but it's just going to be about using your intuition, and that's why it's great, because all these substances work with the intuition.
Exactly, and she's got that going. And she had a colon a little while ago, and so I think that's why she was kind of interested in the colon thing, that she knows enough. Healthy as hell. And I don't know how healthy hell is, but she's very healthy, and a radiologist said she's not going to lose any sleep over her because she's doing so well. So I think she's, safe to say if we go gently at this, I think it's going to be beneficial for her, and I do appreciate your time. So.
Oh, no problem. It's definitely great to be of service. For sure.
That's cool. So is there, now you said your name is James, but it's not James Bomar, right? You're a different James?
No, everyone calls me Sevan, but that's my middle name. So.
Oh my God, I'm talking to the guy
of
that
course.
I have on the
I'm the guy on the screen. I wish we did have a bank full of operators. That's next. They're just taking calls because there's some of them coming in now. There's some people taking the calls and saying, yeah.
All right, James. Well, I am very honored to be speaking to you. I'm starting this, and we'll work on Terra, and we will definitely be in contact with your people, and we'll move through this. And I feel very honored, and I'm glad I don't chant, and I'm glad I just...
Well, there's nothing wrong with chanting. It's just you got to know what you're chanting. You got to know what you're doing. And, it's just because we're hosting a platform that has neophytes and adepts alike. So we have to explain the entire thing in order to get the story out completely and put the proper disclaimers, just like with anything else.
No, seriously, I am chanting to the Lord in my own being.
Right. I feel you on that.
All right, James, I'm going to let you go, and we will be in a little more contact, and we'll get Tara set. She's going to be a powerhouse in the world. Oh,
yeah. Like, I have no doubts at all. I have full confidence, especially if you're tuning in because somehow you found us. So there's really no problem that we can't solve because we don't believe that the problem exists before the solution. And I just want to tell everyone that, like, think about it. The problem could never exist before the solution because everything comes from the soul or the force first, and then it emanates from here.
We'll see. Well, I'm probably going to end up being one of your specialists sooner than later.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. There's tons of potential in the specialist program.
All right. Well, I'm going to be seeing you in Costa Rica someday.
All right. I hear you. And you know.
Bless you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. I keep saying we're going to take one more caller, but I keep seeing the caller from area code 647, and I just can't get off the line without saying something. And there's also another caller from area code 416. If you want to call back, I can't take your call because you've been calling in quite a bit. But area code 647, you're on Astral Quest. We're going to make sure we get your call in wholeness.
Wholeness 7.
What's up?
I have two questions, one on pyramids and one on the Sri Yantra.
Okay.
I'm thinking about making a tetrahedron pyramid to meditate on there. I've been doing some research on a tetrahedron and thinking that it would be effective. What do you think? So the first one is the difference between building a tetrahedron pyramid and the octahedron pyramid. Mm-hmm. And the second question is on the Sri Yantra. I have a Sri Yantra. I'm not too sure on the correct orientation of where the middle triangle should be pointing downwards. Should it be pointing upwards? Is there a mistake in how it's seen on Google? And I'll take my question off the line. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks for calling in. Okay, so to answer the gentleman's question very briefly, and it's interesting because both of them are really related. In regards to the Sri Yantra and then and building pyramids, what I've learned is with the energy is that, especially, how can I put this? Okay, let's talk about the Dynamo Jack video and Qigong Master. And if you've never seen it, you got to type it, you got to see it, because you'll see someone display the real spiritual energy. But there was something that he said, and it rung a bell, and he was talking about yin energy. Okay? And what he said is that all he does is he increases the field of yin, and this allows, I may be saying it all wrong, but just watch it, and he's going to tell you that makes a field of energy. And then this field of energy allows for things that are on the spiritual plane to manifest. Okay? And there's a lot of deep things that you can read into that, because he's really got the power, and he's doing the meditations all the time. His long dead master is even talking to him from the other side of the grave. So they got the connection somehow. So you have to almost read every single word that these kind of people are saying, and not just look at, all the different things that he can do, even though he's not showing off. But it's important to listen to what he's saying. So what he's saying in so many words is that the reason why it's difficult to manifest what we call a spiritual field is because our field is devoid of a specific kind of energy, mainly this yin energy, we'll call it. And what happens is, for an individual who is capable of doing this with their body and using prana, that they can generate one of these fields. In fact, they generally are generating it all the time. It's like an orgone field, right? Now, some people have gotten into the knowledge of how to develop objects that do the same thing, seeing the same energy principles that are assigned to this kind of toroidal or torus type structure, that they've designed imploders, pyramids, especially at specific geometry, in order to attempt to harness or bring down these kind of powers or energy, and to allow them to be in fields that are more concentrated with it, so that they can absorb it. So my response in regards to the Sri Yantra and many of these triangle objects that are built is, the first thing is that we have to understand the real meaning of the Sri Yantra. And as from a metaphoric level, it was the interlacing of triangles, which is obviously the two opposing forces, not necessarily what we call masculine and feminine, but two opposing forces coming together to generate, just like any kind of car does, right? So this is a symbol of a generator. But it's also a very crude symbol because it's using straight lines. So what you'll find is that straight lines are at times the three-dimensional diagrams to what's going on a spiritual plane, but what's happening on a spiritual plane is happening in more of a curve and a fully three-dimensional field. So the easiest way to explain this is that when you're looking at things that are drawn on a piece of paper in this reality, you're looking in 2D, despite you're in a 3D reality. And this must always be understood, is that we see most things in 2D. We have some depth perception, but most things are in 2D, because to see 3D, 4D, you have to see behind the object. And you have to see the object completely. This is only can be done outside of the body. That's why that stage outside the body is more associated to what 3D really looks like. So what happens is that when we visualize things like the Sri Yantra in this other stage, what we find is we find concave triangles. We find a design that seems to mesh right over the spiritual reality that is already present within the physical reality, thus becoming somewhat of a beacon. And this is the same thing that I've noticed this 528 Hz pattern does, is that because it's the same field, and I've seen this also with Dimitri, or in times that I've utilized the third eye, but you see this field that's meshing, and you see it all over the place. Sai Baba's chakras, on the crown chakra, you'll see this is the pattern. You see it as the back of a cone. You see it when you put 528 Hz in a frequency generator on a cymatic pad. So whatever that field is, which is the midpoint of the solfeggio frequencies, it is the convergence field. It is the bridge, right? So I would advise, because there's a lot of pyramid structures and they're supposed to cause great growth and things like that, especially when they're built with copper. But there could be a possibility of building a much more effective object if there are concave triangles, meaning that the triangles bend like this, that they don't have these straight line sides to them. So that's what I would suggest. And so that's probably going to take us almost to the end of the session today. Still waiting for area code 416 to call back. And until then, I'm going to go ahead and take this question. The question is, wholeness, shalom from Israel, the Holy Land. Sevan, what are your thoughts on this? 4 blood moons that will be seen in Israel on the 4th of the high holy days. Okay, what I will say is that most of these terms are very symbolic. And I personally, especially after my latest endeavor into the spiritual knowledge, don't want to get into the spiritual conversation about the origins of many of the laws and the rules that have been decreed for Israel as far as its holy days and spiritual days. And the reason is because I've been reading over a very intense work that talks about the usurping of this knowledge about Israel and about Canaan, about Ra and about Abraham and about Seth, and who everyone in that belief system really was. And about that knowledge system being taken from those individuals, or being taken from that place and then being changed and edited and then being taken to a new place and then given an entirely different meaning. And there's something deeper though, because a lot of people say, oh, I know that. I know our religion was taken away. But if you study the deeper works, you'll find out that this particular system that included these particular gods was the Eidolon system. It wasn't the system of the ancient ancestors. And that's seen within the Book of the Dead, where the being known as Ra, who's now comes forth now as Jehovah, after the name changes and everything, says that I was the first from the Menu, which is basically our correspondence to hell. And not hell as we know it today, but hell as the place of the netherworld to where things are generated from the lower levels and then up. So it gets into some very, very deep things that are very occult. And so I asked today, just from the stance of what people understand about the name, the word that controls them all, the pyramids, the confined ones, the arcs, the covenants, MLK, not Martin Luther King, but Moloch, Menelik, and these kind of deeper connections that are about something totally different than what people think they are, meaning that I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it's not proper to get involved in things that you don't understand and understand, and that you haven't done complete research from connection, meaning that experience is the only real teacher. So when you have a connection with something, it's as vivid as me and you. So if I asked you, when's the last time you talked to it, then in that communication is vivid, not something that's just going on in your mind, meaning that, oh yeah, I talk to God every day. God talks to me. And is that the God in you? Meaning that, is that the actual you, or is this some other deity? Because if you're imagining that it's some other deity, something outside of you, then you're in error, because the only God that really exists is the God within. The ones that are externalized are the eidolons. So what the eidolons had created, and those who brought forth the system of the eidolons, especially duplicating the same Enneagram system that was being used with the ancestral connection, mathematics basically. It's basically where you have individuals just delving into things that they don't need to be delving into until you get to a level of an adept. What you'll find is that the system that replaces the ancestor system was about a business, that system was selling spirituality, that system was a confinement system, a way to actually utilize false ancestors and false spiritual concepts in order to manipulate the individuals that were in that area that were generally being enslaved. So it was very extensive from a level of service, and also predictions. This is when you have something going on every single day, or something's supposed to happen. This is the same thing that's happened in the New Age industry. Oh, it's going to be 2012. This is the change of the entire consciousness. Oh, it's about to be, this comet's going to hit us. Oh, it's 9/11 again. Oh, it's 2012, or excuse me, 33 and 11/11. And so what happens is when you get into doing that so much, trying to predict, trust me, a true magician, as they say, never spends their time predicting the future. They create the future. That's the big difference. Think about it. The one who's predicting is always somewhere, let's see what's going to happen. This means that they are not projectors. They are not manifestors. And they're not creators. They are subjective. Excuse me. Things can always happen to them, right? They can always become subject to something. Okay? So that's what we need to realize, is that a lot of the terminology and the symbolism that's being used today is not explained in the way in which people need to really be hearing it. And so instead, they've come up with something on a physical level to give them a correspondence to it. Then it loses its meaning entirely. So that's all I will say about that, because that's a chakra, meaning that we actually will take a visit to the ancient kingdom and pull it apart. And for if anyone misunderstood what I'm saying today about the connection with the ancestors, just remember what I'm talking about is that you see constant upgrades. You don't see the beginning. The first, they were continuously updating the Bibles and the Qurans and all these books like they're doing Wikipedia. And so where they're at now is the same condition that the whole world is in. It's in the hands of the diaboli, as they say. It's in the hands of some diabolical entity that only wants to utilize it to further itself, to make everyone a slave. Basically, you become a servant of God, right? And none of this makes sense. Once you get into a higher state of consciousness, you realize, first of all, to become a servant to God, there is no servants in a place where all are equal. You can choose to serve, but nobody has you as a slave. You are not a wretch, meaning that no one is higher or lower than the other because all contain, you can call it the all spark. And on every level, on the lowest levels to everyone and the highest level, they are atoms, pure energy. So the division, so notice you got Adam, right? And then when Adam is split, he creates Eve or nighttime. Let me show you how these are metaphors, okay? So Adam is actually Adam Cadman. He is a completely, it's a male-female, completely generated being. Then when it splits the atom, there's an explosion, Eve comes out, or nighttime. This is why there's a nighttime in the reality. This has nothing to do with a male or female as you know them, okay? And then now, once these two are now outside in the external reality, now they commit the sin that they will act of which they will surely die. Now, sin is the other name for the moon. The moon moves into a phase and then it causes excessive reproduction, if you didn't notice. And then they come together and then they commit this moon sin, sex, or six, and then they divide or die, meaning when the baby comes out, the baby is a smaller microcosmic version. So you just died and then came back to life because this is the tree of life. However, if you don't understand how to do this process, then you create a Cain or a king, meaning a child that does not get instructed properly by the parents and thinks that it's the only one. That's why Yaldabaoth, then it's shown exclaiming, I am the only God. Why his mother, Sophia, it's like, Yaldabaoth, no, you're not. So you see, so all these are deeper metaphors. So you have to follow the story and then realize when Abraham and Sarah, or Abraham, the Saraswati, when the seven seals that are broken, those are the seven chakras in the body, because all these books are coming from an entirely different tradition and they're just playing a buffet. So some people think that that's only exclusive to the Christian faith, but it was exclusive to the Egyptian faith once they got the 5 extra gods. Because that threw off the Enneagram, because the Enneagram is 360 degrees. It's a perfect circle. It's 9. It keeps rotating upon itself. Rotate or Sator, Tarot. It's the wheel, right? So there's no reinventing of the wheel because the wheel was not broke. Now that the wheel is broke, there's this constant reinvention of new gods and new deities, new structures. But truth is always apparent within nature. Meaning that there's no reason to go outside to get anything. The nature of how we are. That's why the true nature is your way of being. They say that's his nature. So what are you referring to? You're referring to the person's way of being. So this is what we have to get deep into. Is we have to get deep into looking at back into the symbolism. While a person that's waiting to receive is waiting, like they need someone to help them, right? So we need to start thinking about this because this has a lot to do with our power. Because if we're all the time saying, "Well, give me," I'm gonna take, and we're not pushing anything back in it, but we're thinking we got over. Oh yeah, this keeps giving it away. That's not what's happening. It's just a continuous test to see if you're going to flip the energy around. Because the one who is receiving is the program. It's the computer, right? Like, look at the computer. I tell the computer what to do. Computer, wake up. Computer, I'm going to go over here. You're going to do this. You're going to show this. You're going to do that. You're going to calculate this, right? That's a computer. But when you start being able to engage, that's when you change the energy. So you take your seeds, all your seeds. Your seeds are your ideas, your children, things that you create, your gifts, your talents, all these are seeds. And you take your seeds and you watch where you're planting them. Like if you, and this all is very simple, people, and it's just something that hasn't been brought to this world in the way that it should be. But the reality is, again, if you have a talent or you have a skill and you spend 100% of that talent or skill on to something. This is the parable of the talents. On to something like Joe Schmo's taco shack or Billy Walters' engineering corporation. And all of your energy is your seeds. That's what it is, your seeds. Because remember, seeds have this energy in them. See, a seed has the energy potential of an entire tree. So this means that it's torqued down, and we talked about this before, torqued down encrypted knowledge and energy. So in this seed, there's torqued down energy. Okay. And so what you're doing is that when you release your seeds into the reality and you give your seeds to somebody else and those seeds start to grow, they're going to manifest on their side of the land unless there's someone that is open source or somebody that is symbiotic with you. So this is why we plant a lot of our seeds, our ideas, our intentions, all into other people's stuff or into things that we can't share in. And this is what we spend most of our day doing. The biggest turnaround for me and the biggest change in my life was when I figured out a way to make this my profession, meaning what I do. Talk spiritual knowledge, eat, live, drink spiritual knowledge all day. Meaning that that's, of course, what I do in my life. But that was also accepting that, okay, well, I gave it all away. Personally, that was how I reversed my situation. And because I realized that everything was holding me in Atlanta or Atlantis. I mean, everything was synced up. Like I could see in my life spiritually that I was under some type of dominion. And that all of the stuff that I had gained was under that, was in charge. The dominion had charge of that and all the companies and those kind of things. And I said, and when I went through this spiritual experience, it was so aggressive. I could not deny that there was not a spiritual plane and that there was someone manipulating things from another scope in time, meaning that even the place that I was in was configured for the activation, but I didn't configure I didn't go and move into that place and say, oh, this is a perfect place for the transformation. So this meant that to me personally, and I don't have to authenticate it to anyone else, but it meant to me personally, somebody is on the other side of time. This is going to be very difficult. And I'm that kind of person. I'm like, man, this is going to be a hard one if someone's on the other side of time and they're not even revealing who they are and I can't see them. I can actually feel their presence. And as I went into a greater stage of the activation, I understood who was on the other side of time and I understood even how they were doing it. But right then I felt extremely disadvantaged. So this put me on the path. And it put me into figuring out exactly what's going on here and to not be playing with it. That's why I always tell people, man, you're still playing with it. Like you don't have any idea what it's like to be living this kind of life on the spiritual path and to understand that you are the spirit. Like everyone is monitoring the spiritual path from not inside of themselves. Not everyone, but a lot of people are monitoring this as if it's a subject or something. If it's a study, this is a life. Like this is something that when you get into it, you don't get out. You'll find that it actually is pulling you in. So you better be ready for the next encounter. That's the difference. So what people have done that are taking is that they still have put themselves into a position of when they can choose when they want to metamorphosize. Hopefully they choose fast enough. But when you become a giver, your metamorphosis is guaranteed. That's the difference. Giving pushes off a certain energy that turns the wheel. It doesn't turn back the cogs of time. It pushes them forward. So that's the biggest difference. It's a change in energy direction, centripetal versus centrifugal. So it looks like that we're coming to the end of the program just for today. And I'm going to come up with a dictionary of new words. Because the word program and all these kind of stuff, it gets to me. Especially with knowing the real meaning of the words. But obviously we have to communicate in something. And we have a lot of people that are also neophytes. So if we start to use the more complex word workarounds, then it may get a little confusing. So that's what's up. It looks like that everyone's got their questions answered. There hasn't been any more calls. There has been a couple calls, but we're just going to go ahead and conclude. Let me see here really briefly. Yeah. Well, it was excellent. Well, I don't know if the Today Show was really excellent in the sense of that. Normally I have a lot of stuff to bring, but today I just brought open source, which is enough. And then I also bought grassroots because remember, it's me. There's a few of us. We're increasing that number, but what's happening is also we're being very selective. And the reason why we have to do that is that we cannot have everything that we built tore down by an individual or individuals who are coming and saying they're coming to help, but really need help. So that's why we've metamorphosized the Institute. And I think I'm going to attempt to give a little tour here. Actually, I did say I was going to give a tour. You're more than welcome, Brother Luis. Luis is actually going to be down here in I think, a couple of weeks. And man, we're going to get to this film thing heavy. And I got another guy here, a good friend of mine named Chris. He's been putting big work in on new graphics and design and stuff. And we're just doing what we can with what we have. and it's making a world of difference. We're linking up with some other people. We're scanning some things. There's obviously some stuff going on in the world. A lot of people are uniting, and we want to make sure that we're at those forefronts also to render our assistance if those projects and organizations are really about wholeness. So let me just go ahead and get this other camera plugged in, because I did say earlier that I was going to give a brief tour. Yeah, I got a couple cameras, but you're going to have to bear with me in regards to this whole switcher thing, because I got it hooked up a little bit different today, as you saw me popping up in the frame on one, and this is not the normally the way that it's run, so I just need to figure out really briefly how. But first, I'm just going to start with this room, all right? And that's the camera that we're going to be looking at, and it's got a little latency on it, so while I'm talking, you're probably going to see things a little bit behind. There we go. Okay, so here I am. I'm walking in the room, and all right. So how this works is that this station is this is actually an extractor. You put herbs in here. Let's say, for instance, rosemary, and again, they're going to get a little latency, but you put rosemary or something in here, and then what it does is it uses the heat and it steam extracts the oil, and then you'll get the product of the oil there. And so that's something that we're working with, is seeing the electric potential within herbs. And you can't even get stuff from Young Living that would have the purity level and the level of energy that the herbs have when you first pull them out. And this set only costs, I think, $200, almost $300 on eBay, and they send you the whole thing. And again, when you have those oils yourself, then you know, like, they're not been in the bottle for 2 years or 6 months or whatever. Like oil, just like food, it takes minutes. It can spoil in minutes, depending upon what condition it's in. So what also happens here, and I have somewhat of a limitation with this camera where it can go, is that we have the 3D printer, and believe it or not, like at first, early, I couldn't really see a reason on why to get a 3D printer. I mean, who wants to print plastic, right? Until I start realizing all the different things that could be created. And I feel like personally, if you can get your kids one of these, you can consolidate a lifetime of continuously buying silly stuff and then put them right on to different things like geometry. I'm going to show you some of the things that we made. I'm going to have to get into the other camera. There's obviously a telescope here. We're working on getting into looking at water crystals and that kind of thing. There's the God box down here, which is still being created. It's almost done. And again, there's a little lag on here, but there's actually mirrors pointed inside of that box, and it creates this entire, it's basically the hyperdimensional language in that box with points of light. And we're just waiting for a pin camera because we realized that we couldn't get a decent camera into that hole, so we couldn't do any videos. Over here, straight fringe, like there's no telling what you may run into. I took this off Obi-Wan. No, so there's tons of stuff. There's silver machines to make colloidal silver. There's tuning forks, and again, I'm somewhat of a limitation with this camera. And there's the God helmet. Let me see if I can. And again, I do apologize for the poor quality of camera work here today, but I have another camera that I want to use. Actually going to use GoPros. These cameras work awesome though because they're networked, but we got the God helmet here, and it does work. And in fact, I agreed that I wouldn't use it until I could spend more time in configuring it properly because of how well it worked. Shadowing and ghosting and those kind of things were apparent. But basically what that does is it stimulates the hippocampus area of the brain and many of the central areas of the brain, but it's something that you have to be very gentle with. It's not a hey, let's just turn this thing on maximum power. And so there's tons of stuff inside these cabinets and in this room. And again, I'm just kind of demoing it out today just so you see some of the stuff. There's obviously the frequency generator. There's a Chladni plate to do some cymatics. So we got tons of stuff to get season 3 going and to have an awesome time. This is also a lymphatic stimulation system over here. And yeah, so this is the fringe room, and no telling what's going to go on here. I think actually there's even, again, we got a little lag, but there's the magnetic pulsar printer, and there's that Nova Pro light sound therapy. So don't go run and buy any of this stuff before you get the official yay or nay from Realm Dynamics as far as what if it works in the benefits of it, the potential of it. This is where all of and I'm going to grab the camera now, but this is where all of the work goes on. Like every day I'm in this room and I'm just hitting it. And even till nighttime sometimes. And, a lot of people say, you need to get out more. But I'm like, okay, when we get more people in on this, I'm sure I'll be getting myself out more. But okay, so in this room, what you're dealing with this is where work goes on. So we got quite a few computer stations. So this one is where all the programming and things take place. This is where the server is. If you notice that's the graphic that's playing in the background. So we have the server actually just playing the backdrop right now. I'm not sure how well you can see this. I'm on the narrow camera. And here's some of those things that we printed out with the 3D printer. This is what I was amazed about the quality. And this printer only cost, I think, $1,200, and it was a decision that we made because we were going to make some dollies. And I'm here. So yeah. Okay, so we were going to make some dollies, and I decided for the cameras, because obviously you can put cameras on dollies and you can slide them across and you can do some film. And here's one of those matte boxes that we were trying to get together to do some filming with. And we realized, obviously these dollies are kind of expensive, and we were like, well, shoot, instead of buying a dolly, why don't we just go ahead and get, excuse me, I'm kind of lost for words here, but instead of buying a dolly, and I'm going to have to take this under the table, why don't we just go ahead and get a printer, because there's all these open source dollies that you can just print right out. And so we decided, that was my decision in buying a printer, and I've been printing ever since. This is also, this is all of what you're looking at here is what it takes to run a show. And so what you have going on here is that this is being recorded here. This is how you get your high quality copy after the show. Let's see if I can get into this computer. Okay, so this is actually being recorded now, as you see, in a high quality, and we'll have that uploaded later so you get the high res of the show. All this stuff right here is basically a switcher. Inside of this is what makes TV happen, and this red box right here is what broadcasts things to live stream. And this is a quite complex setup. That's why you see all the cords, right? And so this is also what makes things slightly uncomfortable with studios, is that you got to have a lot of cords. There's no way around it. And so you see there's cords running all through here, and definitely a monster of cords right there. One day they're going to figure out how Tesla made it wireless. Actually, they already figured it out. They'll just maybe release it. But so that's what goes on in the studio. And obviously we'll have some more tours of this place. And here's a little bit of idea of what goes on. I'm going to take you outside of this, into the other room so you can see kind of how that looks. So basically, I'm running all of the necessities out of this room. Let me see. Yeah, you can still see it. And so here's the necessities, right? And then where that's going is that's going into this room. And ta-da! And that's, of course, where I was sitting is in there. So you can see kind of how that green screen thing works. You only need like a small one. And then you do the keying properly, and then you're ready to broadcast, okay? And so actually that's the library back there of all of my books and of the ones that I have in physical copy. And then so again, just so you understand the logistics kind of, is that you're dealing with the studio here, and then that's that room of, let me see if that's even showing. I'm not sure, but I'm trying to hold it out as far as possible. That's the fringe room. Okay, so that's what you're dealing with. And that's Astro Quest Studios. It's a hybrid studio. I'm going to switch the camera here in a second. It's a hybrid studio. Tons of stuff are created here. We can pretty much do anything as long as we put our mind to it. And then if for some reason we can't find it, we just print it. And that's putting the power back into the hands of the people. And we're becoming very creative. And as I said, with the fringe, that keeps us looking into other things and looking into utilizing different materials to create things. That's going to do it for today. And obviously, it's a pleasure. I love being forward. and doing the show again. Sometimes I was like, oh my goodness, if I schedule it next week, I may not be able to make it. So, it's good to start. And in 2 weeks, we're going to get right into the root chakra. It's going to be awesome. We're going to talk about the activation on a real level. And then by season 3's conclusion, everyone will be activated that went through the program and balanced, because you can't activate some things and not activate the others. So just know that we deeply care about everyone, that this is a real thing. We're constantly pushing. It's been nonstop for me for about 4 years. There's tons of people assisting. I do want to give out a special thanks to all those directly working with the network. I didn't want to do the name thing because it's just, there's quite a few people now, and mainly 10 strong people right now. If you want, somebody said, well, how many is it back there? Well, we have thousands of members. Those members are learning the information, they're getting themselves metamorphosized. It's about 10 people that are putting their intentions and putting their projections into the resistance. Obviously, that's directly working physically, and then obviously there's thousands of people all around the world that feel us. We talked to Mike today. We talked to different people that I may not even know are watching the program, but are watching it. I want to say thank you to you. And man, it's just been completely real for me. I definitely want to say I came here and I not only got the t-shirt, but I'm still living and I'm still practicing what I preach in a tense, meaning that all this stuff that we're doing here is what we talked about on the shows, and it's a daily thing. And so we want to get you more into the regimen, showing you how to activate your body and to get you to the potential that you're looking for. So I wanted to say wholeness and balance vibration to everyone, and thank you again. We'll talk soon.